One summer day in 1973, a large group of elderly people were waiting at a Prague tram stop for their morning ride. At around 11 a.m, a pickup truck suddenly came hurtling down the road, swerved violently onto the pavement and slammed into them. Screams filled the air, dead bodies lined the streets, and a few meters down the road, sitting calmly in the driver's seat, was the 22-year-old girl who had decided to kill them all. Olga Hypnerova is one of Europe's most prolific and least known mass murderesses. Her heinous crime, an almost unrivaled example of vehicular homicide, took the lives of 8 people and injured a dozen more. While sickening in its method of execution, it was the cold, premeditated way in which it was all planned that was perhaps most shocking of all. Riddled with psychological problems and fueled by an intense hatred of humanity, the young woman decided to carry out a monumental act of revenge upon the world. Detailing her motives in letters she delivered to 2 Czech newspapers 2 days prior to the murders, Olga stated, "I am a loner, a destroyed woman, a woman destroyed by people. I have a choice, to kill myself or to kill others. My verdict is, I, Olga Hypnerova, the victim of your bestiality, sentence you to death." In her life, we see the story of an outcast, of a person that just did not fit into society. Loneliness and hate finally led to this horrifying act of violence. The unraveling of Olga's mind appears to start in her early teens, marked by a suicide attempt at 13. This was made by taking a handful of the drug meprobamate. It was a culmination of the bullying that she felt she was being subjected to by her fellow students. What followed were long stints of incarceration at a child psychiatric clinic in Opaveny. During these times, doctors identified a number of unhealthy traits: apathy, insubordination, negativism, detachment, vomiting, and nicotine addiction, but were unable to offer a complete diagnosis of Olga's illness. One psychiatrist, who was one of the few people Olga actually opened up to, eventually diagnosed her with schizophrenia. 2 years later, in 1967, a week before her 16th birthday, she wrote him a letter revealing her deteriorating state of mind. She told him that she hadn't spoke to her father since he last beat her, and that she now felt she had nothing to talk about with her mother, who really did try to help her, but lacked the necessary empathy to communicate with her daughter. Olga then expressed her view on society in general, writing, "I hate people. I wonder how my relationship will look as time goes by. I want the people to not exist for me at all. Their words and chatter are indifferent to me. That's what I want. It's better for me when I'm alone than when I'm with them. Everyone falls for their smiles and fellowship. They mutilated my soul." After being released from the psychiatric hospital and failing to hold down a number of jobs, Olga rented a cottage in the Czech countryside and got a job working as a truck driver. During this time, her sexual appetite was awakened, and she formed a number of relationships with women. It appears Olga didn't identify as a lesbian. She had relationships with men and women, and she described reaching orgasm with men too, although she tended to lean towards women. In fact, one of the longest sexual relationships she had was with an older man named Miroslav, and it was with him whom she spent a long camping holiday just before committing her crime. Olga was aware of the evil she was about to commit, and at the last moment she tried to find a doctor to hospitalize her in Bonitsa. She knew she was dangerous, Her psychiatrist tells her that she is working too hard and that if she is tired she should take a vacation. Afterwards she wrote, "If a society consciously tries to destroy an individual, then an individual can, without restraint of conscience, destroy society." Having written the letters to the newspapers, and the letters were only opened after the act, she rented a truck and drove to a busy residential spot in Prague called Strož Majerova Náměstí. The tram stop was a busy one, located at the bottom of a hill, and according to her, allowed a good run up in order to get maximum impact. In one of her letters she states, "Dear Sirs, please accept this letter as a testament. It was written to defend against possible misinterpretation of my act, and also to point out that I am still a sane person. Today I will steal a bus and drive into the crowd at full speed. This is my confession." When she initially drove towards the tram stop, she changed her mind. Not because her nerves had failed or because she had a change of heart. It was because she felt that the number of people waiting there were not enough to be satisfactory. After driving around the block and moving into position again, she once more drove towards the stop. This time Olga drove with intent, mounting the pavement around 30 meters from the tram stop and accelerating rapidly into the group of people waiting there. She collided with 20 of them, careened into a number of shops, then stopped at the end of the street. After this, she simply sat and waited for the police to arrive. Originally, she wanted the victim count to be as many as possible. She even considered train derailment or shooting at people on Wenceslas Square in Prague. When a policeman came to her and asked her if the brakes had failed, she calmly told him she had orchestrated the massacre intentionally. The police officer described her demeanor directly afterwards as exhibiting total mental relief bordering on a trance. The collision killed 3 people instantly, a further 5 died later in hospital, and 12 others sustained various injuries. All of them were elderly. After the act, Olga showed a complete lack of remorse, repeatedly pleading guilty to the crime and asking during her subsequent trial that she be given the death penalty. 2 years later, on March 12, 1975, she was executed. She was the last woman to be put to death in Czechoslovakia. In retrospect, mental health specialists examined her reports and hypothesized she longed for a radical change in her life. They say that is why she went to live in a remote cottage, where she was on the edge of survival in the winter. If she could have taken a huge life-changing leap, as young people do routinely nowadays, she might have migrated to Australia, for example, and had an entirely different destiny. Maybe. Instead, she formed her thoughts on paper and hired a truck. I hope this finds you hale and hearty during these strange, surreal times of lockdowns and quarantine. Yes, what did you think about this case? For me, abhorrence is inexplicably mixed with sympathy for this woman. Terrible what she did, absolutely vile. I'm just thinking if that was my mother at that tram stop. I couldn't forgive her. That's for sure. But when you think about her mindset, my God, wouldn't it be horrible to be in that mindset? You know, she wasn't happy. She tried to get help before this happened, tried to get herself hospitalized. She knew that something was about to go down. It's almost like she disassociated herself from reality, especially when the police officer described her demeanor. Terrible, terrible. what the health experts or medical or psychiatric experts were saying now, reviewing her case, that she might have been different if she had a radical change. And I'm not so sure about that. I think she was probably born with some genetic problem. Very sad. I mean, she wasn't unattractive. I don't know why she was such an outsider. So I can only assume that it was because of her manner. She must have been very withdrawn from an early age. I'm assuming there wouldn't be a happy ending. Maybe she might have committed suicide. That probably would have been the better option, of course. That definitely would have been the better option, considering those poor people and the families of the victims. Terrible. Just, I don't know. It is mindless in a way, but she was obviously out of her mind, so very sad tale. Most murders are, to do with sexual lust or greed or revenge or anger. And in some cases, like Olga, it's a sort of revenge against the world. They feel that they have been wronged, probably because she couldn't really make contact with the world, with humanity. She felt isolated, and in that way she felt like they were, attacking her personally. Very sad. By the way, the image you're looking at on the screen is her Trabant, as they say, the little two-cylinder car they had during the Soviet era. That's her car, and that was the night before she did the terrible deed. She drove her car to the edge of a hill and rolled it over. So that was sort of like confirming for her, I guess, that there was no going back now. Very sad. If you remember, during the narration, her psychiatrist at the time diagnosed her with paranoid schizophrenia. I don't recall that she was hearing voices, though. I didn't read that. And nowadays, the experts are suggesting that she had Asperger's syndrome. But as you know, many people with Asperger's, lead totally fulfilling lives. So if she had Asperger's, which she might have, it must have been combined with some other mental or, personality disorder, because it wasn't just that alone, that's for sure. Anyhow, what's really annoying, this lockdown now. We've been in Switzerland for over a week now. By the time you get this video, it may be well over, or it may be getting worse. I don't know. But I can't even get out. Well, I can't even go to the junk stores anymore. They're all closed. It really is annoying. Twiddling my thumbs, but at least I've got videos to do. But it drives me nuts sitting in front of the computer all day. But I'm hoping this weird thing is over, this virus. The less said, the better. I'll leave that for the live chats. Anyway, I'm going to head off. Before I go, I've got a blooper for you at the end here. So take care, my dear friends. Tell me what's going on in your part of the world in the comments section, if it's still going. I'm hoping it's over by the time this video is released. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye. Mepromate. Meprobamate. This was made by taking a handful of the meprobamate. This was made by taking a handful of the drug meprobamate.